The Toronto Blue Jays are making moves and ahead of what's going to be a crucial next couple of series, finishing off this series against, of course, the Chicago Cubs, and then into the series against the Rangers. The Jays have made an interesting move. We're going to write down exactly what that is, but also discuss multiple huge Jays updates as reinforcements are not only on the way, but they are imminent and coming quick. So stay tuned for all that in this episode, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolute beasts with the support. About 71% of you are watching right now aren't subscribed. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Guys, a lot to go over today. And obviously, folks, yesterday was a huge win for the Toronto Blue Jays. They sent a big message to the Cubs. Hopefully, they can do that once again in tonight's game. But we're going to go over a bunch of updates that have dropped, revealing some pretty big things here. And let's get the move out of the way first. And that's Andres Gimenez being reinstated from the 10-day IL. And, of course, Buddy Kennedy being DFA'd. Now, again, we know that Buddy Kennedy, if you watched the game yesterday, you obviously saw Andres Gimenez. And the big deal here is, of course, Andres Gimenez returning to the Toronto Blue Jays. But we knew that. The bigger thing here is that we now know the first move, which is, the first of many to come, and at least one more surrounding the Jays. So Buddy Kennedy was DFA'd for Andres Gimenez. Now, once George Springer, who we have an update on in a moment here, returns, they have to make a pretty tough decision. And yesterday's lineup, I think, influenced kind of what they're going to be doing, or rather showed their hand a bit with Joey Loperfido sitting against a righty. And I think Buddy Kennedy's the first one to drop. And I do ultimately think that Joey Loperfido is going to be sent down next once George Springer returns. But for now, the moves, Gimenez up, Buddy Kennedy DFA'd. And Gimenez had a pretty good game yesterday, a pretty clutch single that, unfortunately, Carlos Fables sent Ty France on. But that's a conversation for yesterday, which I made a video on last night. But folks, let's dive into some of the injury updates, because that's the big talking point, the big conversation here is the amount of updates that we got yesterday. And let's start with the big one, which is, of course, George Springer. So he is at the Rogers Center, and you'll find a theme if you watch yesterday's game, and just in general, everybody is at the Rogers Center. Santander is watching the game. You have guys, Shane Bieber watching the game. I mean, everybody's watching the game. And Springer's at the Rogers Center with the Jays. He's taking batting practice. He's running. He's fielding. But the club is hopeful that he'll be clear from concussion protocols in the coming days. And then he'll go out on a rehab once cleared, likely multiple games. So he is a ways away. And that's the biggest thing to take away from this. The good news is he's, of course, inching closer and closer. He's still waiting on the the protocol from the MLB, and this has dragged on like crazy. Like, this obviously happened late July, and then he was placed in the 7-day concussion protocol, retroactive to July 29th, I believe it was. We thought he was going to come back after a few days. The MLB has still yet to clear George Springer, who was the best hitter on the team and has had a crazy season. He's been a beast this year. Still have yet to clear him for games. And once he does get cleared, which will hopefully be, by the end of this week, he'll then have multiple games with, you assume, the AAA Bisons or wherever they send him down to rehab. And the unfortunate reality is he's probably not going to be as hot as he was once he, got hurt. And I'm hoping this doesn't derail his season, because he's having such a good year. He made all the adjustments. He now has to have a full-on rehab stint. He's been out for weeks. It's going to end up being weeks by the time he comes back. It's going to be a very interesting thing to see how he actually performs. And luckily, the Jays have a ton of offense. They, have depth all the way through. You have, guys like Joey Loperfido stepping up, Ernie Clement. I mean, obviously, the resurgence of Addison Barger, or rather the emergence of Addison Barger. They've been able to hold their ground. Dalton Varsho returning is kind of not necessarily replaced with George Springer. We're missing in him, but a little bit of it. They need him to be back, and it's very unfortunate that, he's still not, back. We'll have updates probably before the next series, but George Springer, he's going to be back sometime soon, but a lot of rehab games first, and that's going to be something to keep an eye out on. Now, talking about keeping an eye out on, let's talk about the starting pitchers a little bit here. Alek Manoah, he's going to be starting for the Bisons on Wednesday, aiming for 70-75 pitches. Now, I don't think that Alek Manoah is going to factor into the team this year. I've kind of come to that conclusion. I think there's a better chance that Trey Savage, starts a game, maybe not starts a game, but gets in a game than Alek Manoah. I think they're seriously considering, just kind of side note here, Trey Savage as a bullpen guy. I think Manoah, they're just going to run him, at AAA for most of the year. But if you're in Buffalo or you want to go watch Buffalo Bisons this week, you get to see Shane Bieber, you get to see, Alek Manoah, you get to see Trey Savage pitch on Thursday, which is tomorrow. It's a lot of good pitching down there. And, for Shane Bieber, he's starting on Friday, 80 to 85 pitches. And folks, all signs are finally pointing to Mr. Bieber making his return, or to the MLB, and rather his, Blue Jays debut following this start on Friday. So it's all lining up to, again, he starts on Friday, then he probably makes his way back to Toronto, assuming that goes well. That was obviously his 80 to 85 pitch stint. You don't need much more than that. And, he's probably going to come up then to the Jays and get ready to start the next game, what's going to be hopefully a bit of an easier part of the schedule. Obviously, you're in the brutal one right now. You're going to be playing, the Cubs today, tomorrow, and then the Rangers beyond that, Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, all these different guys. I love this news surrounding Shane Bieber. It is obviously massive, and he's throwing a side in Toronto. He threw a side in Toronto yesterday, and his next rehab start is, of course, Friday. So he's around. We saw him throwing a bullpen on the clip yesterday night on the broadcast. I am so excited to see Shane Bieber pitch in Toronto, and I think at this point things are lining up for him to make his debut on the road, which is unfortunate. I would love to see his debut in Toronto, but he will have obviously a home debut anyways. I think he's going to be a game changer, and all signs as well, according to Shadavidi, are pointing to a 6-man rotation. I think that's just what they're going to have to do. You can't really take anyone out of the rotation. How much will that affect the current, guys? Probably a decent bit. I can't imagine Max Scherzer, with the intensity he has, wants to take extra days when he's finally starting to feel healthy again. But it's something that just has to be done here, I think, for the team. And you can't, bench Eric Lauer. By bench, I mean put him to the bullpen. You can't, send anyone down, obviously, and there's nothing like that's going to happen. You got to rock that 6-man rotation. And when you have a Cy Young winner available on your team, it's going to be super exciting there. And speaking of, not really exciting, but, lack of excitement this year, Anthony Santander is back in Toronto. He was in the dugout yesterday. He's continuing to rehab. Hope is he can start swinging in the next week or so. The guy that the Jays brought in the offseason to be the beast powerhouse, the 40 home run hitter, he's hit like 12 or whatever he hit. He is going to be start swinging the next week or so. I think he's done for this year. Obviously, I can't imagine he's going to return this year. Maybe like some crazy mid-September return before the wild card, which starts on the 30th. I don't think that's going to happen, but at least he's making some sort of progress. He's 70% to being 70% better to being 50% healthy for all intents and purposes, to being 20%, 100%. You know what I mean? We're at that point now. So, I'm not super excited for Santander. I'm hoping, honestly, he just takes it easy and fully, goes to his vacation home in Dunedin or wherever it is and just fully locks in for next year. Florida, I mean, not Dunedin. Or it's the same thing, but regardless, it's obviously to, rehab specifically for next season. And I'm fully focused on this year right now. If Santander can come back and be helpful, sure, bring him in. If he can't be, well, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you move on to next year. So let me know down below what your thoughts are, on that front. At the end of the day, folks, there is a lot of things happening. The Jays are making moves, but reinforcements are on the way. Bieber is going to be returning soon. Springer, hopefully, in the next few weeks. And we're buckling up for a very wild end of the summer here, and that's the exciting part. And here's kind of a shout out to Mitch Bannon, just kind of the full breakdown. We also have a couple other things here. Nick Sandlin is playing catch up to 105 feet, so he's another guy who would factor into the bullpen as well. But yeah, good news for Santander starting to swing soon. But let me know down below your thoughts are on all this. Obviously, moves, craziness is happening right now. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way as they enter a very tough stretch. We know the brutal stretch they had. I got this graphic's a little bit old, but it's kind of to show to you the stretch they've had. Friday was Clayton Kershaw, Snell, and then Glasnow, which was wild, into DeGrom, Eovaldi, and then Paul Skeens, who's coming off a pretty rough start there yesterday. But let me know down below what your thoughts are, folks. Hopefully the Jays can take care of business tonight. Vladdy's on fire. The team's on fire. You guys are on fire with the support. You guys have been an absolute beast. See you guys later.